May the word of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be ever pleasing to you, God, the creator of all talent and treasure. Amen.
Amen.
On this next to last Sunday of the church year, we hear one resounding theme in all our readings. Stay awake, be alert, be found working with what you have been given. The readings are giving us a heads up so we can comprehend the urgency, and yet many Christians today will let this time pass without that sense of imminent danger that the prophet Zephaniah and the apostle Paul warned their contemporaries. Now, considering it's been over 2,600 years since the earliest of these writings, it does seem at times that their messages rather ring hollow to us. Now, God would counter that, hey, time has no restrictions on me, and we should probably be happy that he's so patient with us. Well, the parable of the talent opens with an act of trust, and that trust represents the love that God has for us. It is a trust that shows the true nature of God, and that is his desire to work with people for the greater good of the kingdom. In the parable, the master is about to leave town on a journey, and he entrusts his wealth to 3 servants. Each is given a different sum of money to manage according to their abilities. Now, 1 talent was worth a lot. It was equal to what a laborer would earn in 15 years. So even if they weren't paid much in 15 years, that'd be a lot of money. The master trusts the servants to the point of not even giving them any instructions on how to invest or how to manage their wealth. They aren't even bonded. He trusts them accordingly. And after a long time, the master returns, and he calls in his 3 servants, and 2 of them have doubled their money, while the third has made nothing at all. The master is pleased with the first 2 servants and promises them even more responsibility in future endeavors, while the third servant is called wicked and lazy and is thrown out of the organization altogether. Jesus uses this parable to show how it will be when he returns and he establishes his kingdom. Now, of course, God doesn't need the cash, so the great wealth must be whatever God finds to be the greatest of all commodities. And I think that might be love. Jesus made that clear when he was questioned about the greatest of the commandments and the laws, and everything boiled down to love. Everything about the function of God's creation is love dependent. If we aren't interested in growing larger with love, then we are headed for the same fate as the servant who deep-sixed the talent for which he was responsible. As much as love is deemed so valuable that humans seek it right from birth, we certainly have a great deal of difficulty knowing how to show it, sow it, and grow it. Many consider love to be an emotional response to our attraction to another, or maybe to our larger clan, or maybe our country, while we forget that love was originally created by God to be the true measure of our relationship with God. Funny how we view the zealous generosity of our Creator and still set limits on the greatest of all the gifts of which God has bestowed upon us. Many take the gift of love and bury it like the third servant. being afraid to take action, to do whatever they have to do to spur love into growth. Some fear to invest in love because we might find our love towards others rejected or misconstrued to the point that we're just willing to bury it within ourselves. We may be guilty in a similar way that raised God's ire in the lesson from Zephaniah. I'll get that right, yeah. We can become indifferent to what God wants. From that lesson, I will punish the people who rest complacently on their dregs, those who say in their hearts, the Lord will do no good, nor will he do no harm. The opposite of love isn't always hate. It can also be complacency to what is being done wrong in God's creation. Many times we're called into action. We just don't do it. Even those of us who subscribe to the importance of the need to sow and grow love can be poor investors with God's capital. We all have those in whom we refuse to invest God's love. We may feel that the risk of such investment would yield no return to our satisfaction, forgetting that God is the chairman of the board in heaven, and he doesn't need us to act as his asset fiduciaries. The Reverend Charles Huffaker writes, the good news of Jesus gives new meaning to success and security. Success is not found in accumulating more than we could ever use, but in our willingness to risk in response to God's invitation. Security is not found in keeping pace with our rising paranoia, but in the utterly reliable God who trusts us before we trust ourselves, who risked and asks us to risk also. We ministers gathered here today, by virtue of our baptism and our ministry model, clearly are asked to be risk takers with the gifts that God has given us. This is made possible, of course, with God's help. French scientist and theologian Pierre Teilhard de Chardin writes in the book called The Divine Milieu, God obviously has no need for the products of your busy activity, since he could give himself everything without you. The only thing that concerns him, the only thing he desires intensely, is your faith to use your freedom and your preference you accord him over things around you. Try to grasp this. The things that are given to you on earth are given to you purely as an exercise. A blank sheet, like Dinah's paper, on which you make your own heart and you make your own mind. You are on a testing ground where God can judge whether you are capable of being translated to heaven into his presence. You are on trial, so that it matters very little what becomes of the fruits of the earth or what they are worth. The whole question is whether you have learned how to obey and how to love. The Reverend Canon Frank Logue, in his sermon for the day that you can check out online, writes, God invests so much love in you through Jesus' life and ministry, his death and resurrection. You could never repay that love. The good news is you don't exactly have to pay Jesus back as much as you're expected to pay it forward. God is not looking for a return on an investment quite the same way as the hard landowner in the parable. Jesus calls on muscular faith that is put to work and so it grows stronger. I like that image of muscular faith. And I do appreciate all of you here individually and together, collectively, when we flex our muscles of love in the name of God. Yes, we need to be faithful in prayer and active in putting God's love to work in the world. God might even help by providing protection against investment loss. That is similar to the FDIC. We've all heard the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. This is also FDIC, but we'll call it Future Depends in Christ. And with that,